think we're in business. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the conversation. So, I'm trying to start something new because none of you want to read my articles, which is fine. But I figured it's a little bit easier just to record audio. And on top of that, I was actually, so I'm part of a hiring committee as well. And part of our role is to investigate whether our applicants are basically, whether they're good or not. And part of the dilemma that we've been having is that we've gotten a lot of snow recently here in Kansas, and that's been disrupting our in person interviews. So we have Zoom interviews, and on top of that, when we go to call references and everything like that, I was discussing with my supervisor, and we were just talking about the idea that when you're having a conversation with someone, it's a little bit different than hearing their conversation via email. Because in email, you can, as my supervisor said, he was like, yeah, that's where you can edit everything that you say. Compared to a conversation, once it's said, it's been said. And I think that gives me the space to really riff on some stuff and really package the meat, if you will. But anyway, so this podcast, conversation, whatever you want to call it, this is called The Conversation. And why is it called The Conversation, you're asking? So, well, this is a mental health podcast at the end of the day. And part of the goal here is to just start the conversation around suicide, around mental health dilemmas, around what science has to say about mental disorders, about mental functioning, the neuroscience behind mental disorders, and the neuroscience behind a digital world that we're currently living in. So today I just want to talk about modern day mental health paradigms. Might touch into the failing treatment paradigm, and to sort of educate my philosophy with that. And then I also want to talk about social media. So, in case you're new here, my name is Bjorseth. Hello. I'm a psychology student at the University of Kansas, and my passion is to revolutionize the mental health field. So, how am I going to do that? I just want to stop suicides, and I want to, in light of everything I've learned via my own research or formal education in psychology school, I've just come to understand and learn some pretty profound ideas that I think everyone would benefit from. And it's these ideas, like, it's just simple facts. It's just like reading, or understanding, I should say, very pivotal research literature. And I think if more people knew about the nuances of mental health, physical health, neuroscience, social psychology, etc., that we wouldn't be living in a mental health epidemic. Because right now the problem is when you have a mental health problem, typically you'll go to your physician, or you'll go to maybe specialists if you're lucky enough, and a therapist. And, you know, you start going through therapy. Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. You start going to therapy, and you're not taking anything else. Your only therapy model right now is just talking. And for a while, feels good to just get some stuff off your chest, but at the end of the day, the problem still exists. Or alternatively, you go to your physician, you say, hey, I'm having problems with attention, or hey, I've just been really down all the time. I don't feel like myself. Um, my diet's wrong. My diet's been awful. My energy levels are swinging. Um, Whatever the symptom be, you fill out, your laminated piece of paper with 10 questions or so, and you answer, um, as long as you meet the criteria threshold according to the DSM, which the DSM, if you're unfamiliar, is basically the guidebook for diagnostic um, instructions over mental disorders. And once you basically answer yes to a certain amount of these like symptomology related questions, then you're diagnosed with something. And almost immediately, most people will be prescribed if we're speaking on depression and anxiety, most people will be prescribed some sort of antidepressant or a mood stabilizer, even. Or in some cases, I could see if your physician is really good, or whatever specialist you go to, if they're really good, they'll identify comorbidity, which comorbid meaning that you have two mental disorders going on at the same time. And a lot of people actually don't know this, but anxiety and depression are two of, or I guess is the most common comorbidity, or one of at least. And treatment for both, first off, they have overlapping symptoms, and treatment options as well, if we're talking pharmacology, both overlap. And in a way, they're both completely separate disorders. So why are we given the same medication just because some sort of chemical imbalance in our brain? Yes, there might be a chemical imbalance, but what's the root of that chemical imbalance? These are the questions that physicians and specialists fail to question. Or maybe they're questioning it, but they're not putting it into practice, and they're not trying to find a way to find that root cause, rip it out from the root, and move on. And there's a few reasons for this. One of the reasons is that it's going to take a lot more time to find that root. Like literally imagine it like you're spraying weeds in your driveway. It's going to be a lot easier to grab your bucket of pesticide and just go to town. I mean, you just let the hose out. It's going to be a lot quicker, cheaper probably, if you're thinking of like your labor compared to like standing up with a spray bottle and just spraying it down. But alternatively, you could just get on your hands and knees, pull that thing out, and move on. And then you go to the next weed. But it's going to take a lot more man hours. It's going to take a lot more focus. It's going to take maybe some time to really find those roots, spread throughout your driveway. So this is one of the reasons why physicians and specialists often diagnose and then prescribe medication rather looking at the root cause of the issue, which could be a plethora of different things. For depression, at least, there are a few different hypotheses for how depression develops. So there's like a trauma model. There is an inflammation model, which looks at like cytokines, which are kind of like inflammation biomarkers in a way. There's also a monoamine hypothesis, which basically says that like you're not getting enough, or not that you're not getting enough, but there's some sort of dysfunction going on with amino acids, such as like, oh shoot, I'm trying to remember like GABA, for instance, which is an acronym for gamma butyric amino. Oh shoot, I should know this. God, my professors are gonna, if they ever see this, they're like, dude, you need to study. Anyway, but there's a few different hypotheses for depression, and I think inflammation is one of the biggest ones. Um, that could really be a problem that most people are suffering from. And when you're slapped with some sort of SSRI, so let me give you some context. So the inflammation model basically says that there is systematic inflammation going on in your body. And mental health is more than mental health. It's not just in your head. So your mental health, in a way, is your brain health, right? Because your mental is in your brain, or like your subconscious feelings, your conscious feelings, your emotions, all of these things, your brain drives all of it. Like, what is reality? Like, your brain just sparks up a bunch of electrical signals and neurochemical signals, and that is how you perceive reality. It's just your brain firing off so many different things. And, even like me looking at this camera right now, you looking back at me, your optics are recognizing that, okay, there's this dude with glasses and headphones on, and he's sitting in a bedroom, and he looks like he has a cheap podcast setup, which I do. We're going to work on that, though. But it's all just processing information, and then you get feedback from that sensory input, and then you get an output, which is in your brain. And then it works together with everything else to recognize what you're looking at, whatever. Anyway, let's get some fuel. So, let's see, where do I want to go with this? I think we should just jump right into it. So, as I mentioned, my name is Benjamin. My name is Benjamin Bjorseth. Clearly, haven't had enough coffee this morning. Ich brauche einen Kaffee. That's something I learned recently. It's I need coffee in German, which learning stuff is really great for the brain. Let's try to learn something every single day. But anyway, today I want to talk about like modern day. Wait, let me check this. What's this angle looking like? Okay, not bad. Today I want to talk about like modern mental health and social media, as I mentioned. So let's start first with social media. So I'm 22 years old. I was born in 2002. I grew up living and breathing social media since I was 12 or so. And that's when like Vine was really popular. That's when YouTube kind of first started up, which it wasn't even close to where it's at right now. But in terms of like how much media is just being pushed and pushed and pushed, like now there's like shorts and stuff like that, so I can see 1,000 videos in an hour instead of like one video. But hopefully this video won't be an hour long. But yeah, I grew up in a pivotal period, I think, in terms of humankind, or at least westernized, industrialized humankind. Of course, there's countries that aren't living in a digital age. And funny enough, these countries often don't suffer with the same rate of mental disorders that we do here in America. And, we're living in a mental health epidemic. We're also living in a loneliness epidemic, which is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy that both of them are occurring at the same time. I think it totally makes sense, but we got to do something. And part of the goal here is to just open up some unscripted, relatively unscripted conversation about these different topics, and to just sort of educate and really analyze some of the things that are going on. So, um, so let's talk about social media. So, I got a few bones to pick with social media. I think social media is great. Um, we Humankind has never lived until now. Humankind has never lived in a period where I could call someone across the world. I could send them a picture. I could FaceTime them. I could do whatever I want in terms of communication with them at any given moment, anytime I wanted to, which is amazing. Like, it is having an insane impact on scientific literature, for one. It's having an insane impact on physical performance in various different industries, like sports, for instance. Like, you see some kid from Europe like juggle a ball, 6,000 times. And now I'm just a kid in Kansas. I see this on my phone. Say I'm like 14 and I'm like, "Whoa, like I got to level my stuff up if I want to make the team next year at my high school." There's this kid out in Europe who is just insane. Next Lionel Messi. But and then you look at, like, I also like play guitar too, so I see another kid just like, say he's like 8 years old and he's just tearing it up. And I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, I say I play the guitar, but then there's people like this. So there's a huge level of social comparison, which, for better or for worse, it's happening. And part of the problem with that is that you're getting fragmented reality. Because now I see this video of this juggler or of this guitar player, and I think my brain wants to see a pattern in this. It wants to see or understand it. Like, this person's grown up their whole life doing this skill. They've dedicated time and effort to it. So as long as I do that, I'll be that good. But that's not the reality in it. Some people are just talented, and that's it. And but what I perceive is that, there's people like this all around the world. Because then the next video I see is another dude juggling 1,000 times. Or there's another guitar player who's even younger and he's ripping it. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this Miles Music kid. It's like this 8-year-old or so, and I think he's gonna be like one of the greatest music producers we have ever seen. I mean, not ever seen, but I mean, this kid's 8 years old and he's just like thrown together some pretty high level beats. Like, I don't know beats like that. I don't know music like that. I'm a big fan of music, and I like listening to music. I like making music sometimes, and I especially like playing music. Catch me on a drum set or a guitar if you want to hear some mediocre music. But I mean, this kid's insane. But it's that fragmented reality that I'm now giving myself, or kind of perceiving at least, of like, I'm not talented because there's that social comparison factor. I mean, social comparison teaches us, it's a part of life. Like, we judge others and we judge ourselves in turn. It's just a part of it. Like, we've had it since we were hunter gatherers. And this kind of touches on part of my philosophy with this, is that we sort of need to go back to that hunter gatherer era. And I mean, obviously, like, I love phones. Like, I love being able to text anyone in my family at any given moment, or FaceTime them, or make a LinkedIn post about, some ideology that I have, or maybe some interesting idea I have. I love it. And people get to collaborate and share with that. And, there's a lot of collaboration nowadays, but there's also a bad side of this collaboration, um, especially when it comes to politics on social media. So, polarization is also another huge issue when it comes to social media. Something that really struck out to me, so there's this guy, Jonathan Haidt. He's a social psychologist and he's written a couple books as well. He wrote this article recently that's called Why the Past 10 Years of American Life Have Been Uniquely Stupid. And in this article, he touches on a few big ideas. The first being fragmented reality, and the second being polarization. So on social media, it always seems that like the shiniest thing, the loudest thing is getting the most attention. Like the craziest people are the ones that get the most attention. And he mentioned something about how, and this really stuck out to me. This was really profound and so accurate in terms of like reality, which I think a lot of people don't see it this way, but the type of people, and maybe you guys do, maybe you do understand it like this, but the type of people who are making these posts on social media. Okay, let's like do politics for an example, so it's a little bit more concrete, rather abstract. So say we're talking about politics and you see this like Reddit post or Instagram post about some guy outraged by some new policy. What you don't see is the average person giving their 2 cents. The type of people who are gonna go online for the public to see and make some angry rant. Like, this is only a subset of people, as Jonathan Haidt says. Like, it's a very minimal amount of people who actually think and behave this way. But social media acts as a filter that almost like boosts and heightens their perspective. Because now, you see this video of this guy who's screaming at the top of his lungs about, whatever. Maybe that they got rid of like Red 3 or something, and he's like outraged because he loves his hot Cheetos or whatever. I don't even know if Red 3's in hot Cheetos, but let's say like Nerds. It's probably in Nerds. But you don't see the average person like in the comment section being like, you know what? I really don't mind it. Like, it's just not something that's in our reality. It's always the shiniest, brightest, loudest thing that gets attention. And this actually goes back to a lot of social psychology theories. And these theories point that humans often prefer to hear negative news. And what I mean by this, like, we don't like to hear negative news, but this resonates the most with us because it teaches us what to avoid. And this goes back to like hunter-gatherer era. Like, when, say you're like in your within group, and so this goes back to like Peter Singer's philosophy of like in groups and without and out groups, basically saying that back in the day we lived in groups of like 50 to 150 people, and those people are the people you like slept with, hunted with. Not sleep, I don't mean like that. I mean, you guys got in your cave or whatever, and you guys built a fire, then you went to bed. But these were the people in your circle. This was like, your family in a way, whether they were immediate or not, but or blood related. And even though they are like your in group, say someone like fucks up and like they forget to like wash the fish before cooking it for everyone after you guys like just got back from hunting or fishing, and then everybody or say 20 people get super sick and die or something because you're living in whatever time frame where hospitals have never been a thing. So then 20 people die, and now you remember, oh, Johnny fucked up. I need to make sure that I wash my fish next time so people don't die when I cook for them. Same thing with like, say you're getting chased by a lion. You see this certain tree, you're in the savannas, you see this certain tree, and all of a sudden out pops a cheetah. You're toast. But say you manage to get away. now next time you see this tree, something in your brain is going to say, get the away. You need to get out of here. This thing, this tree is bad news. So this is why like negativity is so critical for our learning. I mean, it's nowadays you could also see it like I don't know if you guys play sports. I grew up playing a handful of sports from soccer, football, baseball, basketball. I did dive team for a couple of years. I also played lacrosse for a couple of years till I got my sports injury. I also, what else did I do? Football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse. Oh yeah, soccer too. Love soccer. But I played all these sports, and when you fuck up, your brain really tries hard to remember that fuck up. Because this teaches us a lesson, teaches us not to do it next time. But so this is basically this is the theory, and so negativity really resonates with us, and this is why people think the world is actually more violent than it is nowadays, because you see news compared to 500 years ago or so, or even, yeah, let's go 500 years ago. 500 years ago, you know, wars were, first off, there was no, well, wait, there was news because Gutenberg was in like 1500 or so. So there was a printing press, but okay, let's go back 1,000 years. Sorry about that, y'all. Let's go back 1,000 years. So, people could just like, the world was much more violent back then compared to what it is now. But people would think otherwise because they're constantly getting the stream of negative news of like a bombing or a plane crash or a robbery or what else is going on in the world right now. Whatever, you get the point though. Um, yeah, but the world actually isn't as violent as it once was, nor is it. I mean, it could be more negative now, but we're just in social media, in terms of like polarization, we're just seeing a huge voicing, a huge amount of voicing from people who, want to explain their radical perspective and or the radical opinions or just opinions in general. But social media gives them the platform to really widely spread their opinions. And it's just some food for thought that I think is interesting. If we're gonna talk about social media, polarization is one of the biggest problems and bones to pick that I have with social media. Um, so yeah, it's really interesting thinking about what life was like even 50 years ago, like my parents' generation. There was no such thing as social media back then. Like when they were 22 or whatever, it was just like you knew who you knew, and maybe you read some books too, so you knew some other people, and that was that. But now our social circles or our in groups have expanded so big, and it's not uncommon to say that you know like 1,000 people or something, or like 500 people, but you only know them at this bare minimum level because you just know like what their last Instagram post was. So it's like almost creating a false sense of social connection. Of course, like you are digitally connected, but it's different when you're in person. And as I was saying earlier too, like that hiring committee I'm on, since we were snowed in, we had to do some interviews like via Zoom and compared to in person. And me and my supervisor were talking about how it's just such a different feel when you're doing something like that over through the filter of a screen. You can't like pick up on the person's like micro expressions really. Um, I imagine it's also a little bit more performative because now you can really filter how you're presented over a camera. Like you can change what your background looks like. You can change um, all these different things, which in turn influence how you're perceived compared to in person. Like that's the raw version of you. It's a weird world we live in, but let's just skip ahead to the next big idea I want to talk about, and that's brain rot. So this was the, I think this was termed or deemed the word of the year last year in 2024. I mean, do I need to say anything about this problem? I mean, it's gotten out of hand. So last semester, I was in this linguistics course, and part of that course was to do a final project, rather like an exam or paper or whatever. So the final project I chose, we did like our own research for it, gathered data, etc. And I chose to focus on the use of brain rot words and how they're influencing in-person conversations. So like based on how many hours someone's spending on TikTok or Instagram, first off, have they heard of these key words, which I think I chose like aura, Riz, um, what else was there? Like maxing. I don't know if that might be too far for you guys to know that one, but and like a couple other ones, but there was a correlation with how much time someone spent on social media and how often they used these keywords, which just proves the fact that there is an influence that social media is affecting our in-person behaviors. So what's to come? Like you can't control the type of content you see. You can control how long you look at it for, or you can control whether you like it or not, or whether you share it with a friend. But at the end of the day, like you do not facilitate your algorithm. The algorithm's job is to keep you on that platform. It's to keep you hooked. And nowadays, we're even getting some friction against this where you'll be scrolling. This has happened to me before, and whenever I get one of these messages, I'm just like, wow, like I need to fix something. But you'll be like scrolling, and then all of a sudden you'll get this video, and then it'll like it within that video, it'll like look like you're still scrolling, and then it'll scroll really fast, and then it'll say like a message will pop up like really slowly. It'll be like, take a break. Like reels will still be here when you close your phone. Like just get out of here for a sec. So we're getting some like friction against this algorithm. And it's evident that people are starting to recognize the algorithm is an issue. Social media is an issue. It's great for a lot of reasons. It's bad for more reasons, I think. So the doom scrolling habits need to stop. And I mean, it's only a matter of time until we get some research on how scrolling is affecting us and how it's physically and behaviorally changing our neurology, our physiology. One theory that I have is that um, you guys ever heard about like, has anyone ever told you to like not put your laptop on your lap because it like causes cancer? I mean, that's what they say, but who's to know if it's really true or not? But I think not that social media is causing cancer. I guess if you don't count a lack of de-stressing in someone's life. But like I have a theory that this is like so out of the box, which, take this with a grain of salt, please. But I think just having your phone on you, near you, all the time, at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of electricity going on in our bodies. There's also electricity going on in the phones. So I'm wondering if there is some sort of like effect that physically having that phone in your pocket can affect your body. And I think there could be something there to that. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, social media has really had some interesting effects. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I just want to say that I know this is like pretty surface level, and that's sort of the whole point. I just want to like chop it up and just like talk about things. It doesn't always have to be so professional, which for a while I was kind of nervous to start talking about this because I figured I wouldn't be able to provide enough value to you to have this resonate at all, or at least as long as I can get like 10 people to listen to this and be like, yeah, okay, then that, the goal's been accomplished. But I just want to really start the conversation. Anyway, modern day mental health. This is the last thing that I want to talk about today. Let's see, what are we at right now? 37 minutes. So this is the last thing I want to talk about today. And mental health, modern day mental health, the failing paradigm. So we were talking earlier about treatment models. Now I think we should talk about the effect of these treatment models. So another problem within diagnosing and treating mental disorders is this thing called monotherapies. So a lot of people are only ever given like one therapeutic avenue, or they're given like one street. So from my experience, I went to my physician, who is not a specialist in mental disorders by any means. Of course, he is a medical doctor. I'm sure he's had a few lectures on nutrition and mental health. Well, it probably wasn't called mental health back then. It's probably called psychological disorders. And maybe some social psychology stuff, behavioral psychology. But he's by no means a specialist. And he told me, so when I came into him, I had depression at the time, and it had lasted for years at that moment. And for more than I can remember, I had it. And he comes to me without scanning my brain, without doing a blood panel. He says, take this laminated piece of paper, answer the questions on their Likert scale, which basically means like the Likert scale is, if you've ever taken a survey before, and it's like, how often do you drink coffee? And it's like, never, sometimes, often, more often than not, always. That's like the Likert scale. And so I'm filling out this Likert scale, these 10 questions or so. Then he goes, okay, you have a neurochemical imbalance. You have depleted serotonin in your brain, and this is why you're depressed, which is utterly bullshit. In psychology, the brain, for psychological disorders and emotional health and mental health, this is the only medical industry that does not view the organ in which they are treating prior to treatment. Let me say that again. Psychology is the only medical industry that does not view the organ they treat before they treat it. It's insane. And no one's questioning this either, which I think is even more insane. A lot of people just don't understand this, though. People don't understand the need to look at the brain before you treat it. And that's part of the problem. And this is why the conversation is a thing. This is why I'm here right now, doing this totally free. I'm not making any money on this. I don't plan to make money on this. This is literally just free education because shit like this is happening every single day. And another person, I bet you hundreds of people today, are going to be prescribed an antidepressant, even though their physician has no idea whether or not the brain actually has a neurochemical imbalance. They have no idea whether there's systematic inflammation in the body or not. It's insane. And of course, there are some psychiatrists and doctors who really take the time with their patient and get to understand what's going on from the root. They can do, there's like 10 different ways to scan the brain. And I'd say, how would you find a neurochemical imbalance? Pretty sure you do this through like blood paneling stuff. And I'm sure you look at like certain biomarkers or like health markers. But the hypothesis that my physician was treating me based on, he didn't know, but based on some theory that he read about, there was a neurochemical imbalance in my brain, which likely was true, but a pill isn't going to fix whatever's causing that neurochemical imbalance. So SSRIs, this is what he prescribed me, gave me an SSRI, and how SSRIs work is, oh man, I don't know too much about it, but what I do know is that it's the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And what this means is it doesn't give the brain more serotonin, but it basically makes the brain more accessible to serotonin because something is going on in the brain, in this hypothesis, something is going on in the brain where there's not enough serotonin being released in conjunction with like when it naturally should be released. So yeah, he didn't even look at my brain though. And part of the problem that he didn't understand was that, this is all my perspective. Who knows whether or not he knew this, but did you know that 95% of your serotonin is created in your stomach? It's in your gut. And this comes from like neurotransmitter synthesis, comes from the food that you eat. It's like tryptophan is one of the molecules, I believe. Let's double check that. But tryptophan precursor is a precursor to serotonin, I believe. So tryptophan is found in like white meat, like chicken. This is where we naturally synthesize serotonin from. And 95% of that serotonin that gets reuptaked into our brain comes from our stomach. So he could have just told me, hey, you should start eating some more chicken. I think this would help give your body more serotonin, or I don't even know if that's entirely true, but basically, like, it's not that my brain could have been fucked up, but he didn't know. I didn't know either. He never took a brain scan for it or a blood panel. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And on top of that, he never prescribed me to like try to exercise because I was having like anxiety and depression at the same time. This is comorbidity. And he never told me once like, hey, I think you should like go for a high intensity run and like get some of that energy out. He never prescribed this. And I don't totally blame him either, because if that didn't work out, now he's giving a failed practice which can't be backed by insurance, which can't be regulated in any means, compared to a medication where he knows exactly how much of a compound is in this pill. He's going to give me this every single day. But then I just get the symptoms that come with said pill. And then he gives me another medication for those symptoms. This is known as iatrogenic diseases. Iatrogenic meaning it stems from another treatment. So like it's like cancer, for instance. When you go through chemotherapy, you often get depression. So this is an iatrogenic influence from your chemotherapy, because you're trying to kill your body in a way and then rebuild it back up. Anyway, it's just insane. It's medication on medication, and this monotherapy paradigm is fucked up. And I'm hoping one day, this is sort of the gap that I hope to fill one day once I'm like qualified license, get my master's or whatever the degree is. I want to prescribe lifestyle medicine to people. Specifically, I want to give them a nutrition specialist to work with, an exercise specialist to work with. I want to give them a behavioral specialist to work with. So let's get rid of the doom scrolling. Let's get rid of the fast food. Let's bring in some home-cooked meals that revolve around a Mediterranean diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, at least if I'm helping someone with depression, anxiety, or just helping someone in general, even, because this stuff goes beyond psychological disorders. It's for the average person. The average person, which nowadays is likely to have some sort of psychological disorder when you're looking at the statistics of industrialized, westernized countries. But the average person could really excel in both cognitive and physical performance if they do all of these different things. And a lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people don't understand the literature or the research article that has this huge graph on it, this meta-analysis, and there's a ton of numbers everywhere and acronyms everywhere. And, you're like, what is the TRKB pathway? What is creatinine, and why is that important for cognitive function? Like all of these different things. So yeah, this is this was just a quick breakdown over modern mental health and some issues, some bones I have with social media. I hope you enjoyed, maybe learned a few things. And let's see, how do I want to end this? Not really sure. I hadn't really thought about how to end this episode. Let's just go with be better, have a great day, and stay classy. And I hope to see you back here for the next episode. I don't know when it's going to be. I didn't really plan anything too much. That's sort of the whole point with this. I just want to give you all some like raw perspective, and yeah. So anyway, comment down below what you think. I would love to hear any opinions. So yeah. Anyway, be better and have a great day, y'all. Thanks.